Hello and welcome. We're here for the first in the series of our digital health huddles, pitching and polling. I'm Jasmine McNeil. I'm the program director for the HexSite program. And I also lead a design team at the Johns Hopkins Medicine Technology Innovation Center, who hosts the HexSite program. We're really excited to have everyone here today. HexSite is an early stage digital health software accelerator. And it's built from the talents of clinicians here at Johns Hopkins who are looking to solve a problem with medical software. I have a few housekeeping tips I want to get started sharing with you guys today. So before we get started, I wanted to talk a little bit about how you can interact. So if you can look for that chat button at the bottom, we invite all of you guys to chat, share who you are, where you're from, and also share your LinkedIn profile. For polling, that's part of today. We're pitching, but we're also polling you. So if you can respond to the polls, they're anonymous, no pressure, but that's part of the fun of the interactivity. You'll also be choosing the People's Choice pitch at the end of the day. And then I also wanted to talk to you a little bit about the best screen format for today's pitches. The best screen format is side-by-side mode. So when the presenters share their slides, you actually can look at view options at the top of the screen, and you can choose the side-by-side mode. That will show the pitches next to the presenter. And then there's a space in between where you can drag out the presenter so that they're about equal sizing. And so that sort of looks like this. You can actually see where the side-by-side mode is on my screen. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that Chesapeake DHX at jh.edu, if you have any technical issues, we're here to help you. So please reach out there. I know that's different than one of our reminder emails. So remember, Chesapeake DHX at jh.edu. So before we jump into our program, I wanted to tell you a little bit more about HexSite, our accelerator program, and kind of what these teams are and what they've been through. So this is the HexSite journey, and it's a story from close interaction to socially distanced success. So these teams started out kind of doing a sort of a speed dating event to kind of actually get to match each other with teams. And actually, there was a clinician who came in with an idea, and then we actually matched that clinician with engineering, design, and business talent. So we started that way. Once we put teams together, they actually started looking at the workflow of the clinician and how they could build software to fit that workflow and solve a clinical problem. So here's a team working together on the board solving a clinical problem. These teams went through dozens of interviews, customer interviews, to try to refine their business model and their product. And so here you can see the teams working together on that. And we brought in experts from the startup community to really anywhere around the institution to kind of help these teams navigate digital health startupdom. Which then in March, everything changed. We went virtual, but interdisciplinary collaboration and innovation persisted. So here's a team working together virtually. Which brings us to today. These teams have put in the work. They've completed the customer interviews. They've built a demo prototype. They're going after funding. They have a pilot ready for Johns Hopkins, and they're here today to pitch to you for your feedback. So with that, I'd like to introduce our lovely MC, Ash Davison. She'll be taking you through today's program. Ash is the physician advisor to the Technology Innovation Center and HexSite. So with that, I'd like to pass it off to Ash.
Thank you so much, Jasmine. Really great work that you, Emily Marks, Paul Nagy, and the entire team at the Technology Innovation Center and Chesapeake Digital Health Exchange have done in putting together this virtual event. Before we get started with some introductions of others who will be speaking and our esteemed judges, and of course those that are pitching, I wanted to take a brief moment to just mention to everybody that We know that wherever you are around the country or the globe joining in right now, that the past few months have been jarring for all of us. And we hope that these are, this is a 2-hour slot in your day that is able to inspire you and take you away from what we've all been dealing with, whether you're juggling family, friends, work, your own, personal, emotional angst, financial situations, coursework. We have such a diverse range of attendees here. Just know that we're thinking of you. This time has been transformative for all of us at Johns Hopkins Medicine, at the health system, at the School of Medicine. And I think that there's no better time to be talking about innovations in digital health and in medical software. We're so proud of these teams. During the course of this event, we're going to be introducing you to Chesapeake DHX. I'll talk about the judges, and you'll hear the pitches from each of the 5 teams. After each pitch, we're going to give the judges an opportunity to share their feedback, and then we'll take a little trivia break while the judges tally up the scores. Like Jasmine said, unlike the Oscars, there is an audience choice here, and you'll get to select your winner. And then we'll talk about some upcoming events with the Chesapeake Digital Health Exchange as well. Again, welcome to all of you. I'm proud to be a part of the Technology Innovation Center, CDHX. And with that, I'll hand it off to Mark Comiskey. Mark, can you tell us a little bit about Chesapeake Digital Health Exchange for those who may not be as familiar?
Sure, thanks, Ash. I'm Mark Comiskey. I'm so happy to be co-sponsoring this event with Anchor Ventures, and pleased to see all the teams here today. I'm also happy that HexSite is part of the broader effort of the Chesapeake Digital Health Exchange, or CDHX. CDHX is a 3-year effort funded by the U.S. Department of Commerce to improve the Chesapeake regional ecosystem for digital health. We're fortunate to have so many assets in the Chesapeake region that make this a unique place for digital health technologies. First, we have a highly talented technical workforce. We have leading university researchers. We have world-renowned medical centers, a lot of major government agencies that really support this effort, including the NIH, the FDA, and the NSA, because security is obviously a big issue. We have a unique healthcare reimbursement environment that makes us prone to innovation. And we have broad support for entrepreneurs generally, both at the state and local levels. Our goal at CDHX is to make it easier for digital health startups to thrive in the Chesapeake region. And we do this by a number of different ways. First, by organizing and making meaningful connections among startups, investors, customers, and strategic partners. We actively seek companies in the space, and we're holding events, now online, to highlight digital health successes and connect the community. We work with other universities, other incubators, and partners in the region to leverage the resources that are already being dedicated to complementary efforts around entrepreneurship and innovation. We're going to market the region to attract outside capital, startups, and jobs, and we support job training and a diverse workforce development. For further information, as they said, please go to our website, chesapeakedhx.org, and sign up to be on our mailing list. Thanks to all of you for being with us today, and thanks again to the teams for all the work that they've put in on this. And now for a few comments from Dr. Brian Hasselfeld, the Assistant Medical Director for Digital Health Innovations here at Johns Hopkins.
Johns Hopkins Medicine, prior to COVID. Thanks, Mark. And first of all, congratulations to the HexSite participants at making it through the program and leading the front lines for how to utilize digital health in healthcare delivery. We've truly experienced a transformation in healthcare, unprecedented, as many are aware, to any other point in our recent history. Johns Hopkins Medicine, prior to COVID, we certainly were engaging in digital health and telemedicine, but on low volume. Just as an example, we would have a couple hundred video visits in any given month. We had over 100,000 video visits in the month of April, as well as another 15,000 completed over telephone. How we're delivering care has truly transformed. I think that this will remain sticky with our patients. There will be an expectation of convenience and access that did not exist prior to the public health crisis. And those that are participating in this HexSite Accelerator are certainly leading new and innovative solutions. In my role as the Assistant Medical Director for Digital Health Innovations, as well as my role in the Office of Telemedicine, We'll be here to support innovators inside of Johns Hopkins Medicine and those affiliated with our enterprise to help bring these solutions forward and help solve problems for both our providers and patients. And look forward to working with you all after the Hexite Accelerator to help meet the needs of everyone that interacts with Johns Hopkins Medicine. Again, thank you for your commitment, your solutions, your innovation, and good luck with your pitches here today. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Ash Davison.
Great. Thanks so much, Mark and Brian. We would have loved to have Brian here today. He's hoping to make a special guest appearance. But as you can imagine, everyone, our wonderful Dr. Hasselfeld, who came here from Boston last summer to be, the face of digital health innovation, is also the interim director of the Office of Telemedicine. So as you can imagine, he would just not have anticipated that that he'd be working 24/7 the past few months, so early into his time here at Hopkins. We're very lucky to have him. He's been boots on the ground in the Incident Command Center, helping everyone adapt to all of the rapid change in telehealth policy implementation. And, he is in a strategic planning meeting that he got pulled into. So we appreciate him providing some encouraging words. Before I introduce the judges, one thing I wanted to mention is, that Mark Comiskey is very humble, but he, in addition to his role as an entrepreneur, is a faculty member and has taught at the University of Maryland as well as Hopkins. I just sent out a link to one of the upcoming seminars that he's going to be directing here at Hopkins in the School of Medicine this summer. It's a 1-credit seminar on data-driven digital health entrepreneurship. So you can check out the link there, and hope that some of you who are local to our Hopkins ether can join us virtually, and others of you happy to share more about what Mark and others are putting together for our summer elective offerings here at the School of Medicine. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our esteemed panel of judges. As you can see here on the left, we have Claire Johnson, Managing Director of the Maryland Momentum Fund. We then have Chris College, Managing Partner for TCP Venture Capital, and Susan Carr, Associate Director for Johns Hopkins Healthcare Solutions. Before we move on to the next slide, I just wanted to mention Susan, myself, Brian, Mark, we were all on October 31st, Halloween, sitting in a room back when we could physically be with the cohorts, hearing all of the pitches, and it was just such a wonderful experience. It's bittersweet in some ways to be wrapping up the season remotely, but we're thrilled to be doing this. I know that Chris and Claire have been active with Chesapeake Digital Health Exchange. Chris and I have judged the final event, many times in years past. I know one of the attendees here right now is Kristen from Be Well, and Kristen and her team have just been doing such wonderful work and have had some great success. I saw Nick Culbertson from Pro Tennis. So, we really have a great local ecosystem here, and hope to have some of these teams that you're about to hear from join that ecosystem in even a bigger way. So with that, I think we're going to go ahead and introduce our first team. Is that correct, Jasmine?
That's
Wonderful.
correct.
Okay, great. So thank you again to our judges for joining us. At this time, we are going to tee up the team from Acute Cards. So Disha Mady, if you would like to go ahead and have your team, I know that Leo Lee is going to be driving the slides. You can go ahead and share. I want to just, really say that this team came together at the beginning of the year itself, and they were in MedHacks, which is an annual hackathon at Hopkins. And I believe you guys placed in the top 3 and even got some recognition from Elsevier during your pitch there. So you started off the year strong, and I can't wait to hear about how far you've come. Disha Mady, your 10-minute clock starts now. Good luck.
Good afternoon, everyone. As Dr. Davison mentioned, my name is Disha Mady. I'm the clinical lead of Acute Cards, and today I'm here to present to you our solution to decrease hospital costs by improving clinical outcomes in the neonatal intensive care unit, or NICU. As a NICU nurse, I work with critically ill babies who are taken away from their parents right after birth because they require life-saving interventions. There are 300,000 NICU admissions annually in the United States, where parents are physically, psychologically, and emotionally separated from their infants. Let me tell you about a specific story about one of my patients. Baby Aliana was born almost 4 months early and required immediate cardiac surgery. Her parents, Adriana and Jose, were crying and felt intimidated by all the wires, tubes, machines, and clinicians surrounding their baby. Staff members were too busy taking care of Aliana's clinical needs to take care of the parents. Adriana and Jose felt lost and didn't feel like they were the parents at all. This situation is commonplace in NICUs all across America, where clinicians are overburdened, parents are uninformed, and babies don't receive optimal parental bonding. Most NICUs strive to involve parents in the baby's hospitalization in a process that's called Family Integrated Care, or FICARE. FICARE methods include teaching parents essential baby care skills and empowering them to take care of their own baby as much as possible. Clinical studies show that FICARE improves infant weight gain and breastfeeding, decreases parental stress and anxiety, and most importantly, decreases the baby's length of hospital stay. But FICARE can be difficult to implement consistently because clinicians are often too busy just taking care of the baby. This is an example of the status quo in most NICUs regarding parent education and involvement tools. Adriana was slammed with huge admission binders and handouts. They're dull, static, not user-friendly, and frankly, Adriana did not have the patience to read something like this amidst all the chaos of the NICU. This is what we propose instead. We created acute cards to better facilitate FICARE within the NICU. Our interviews reveal that parents want something physical to keep as a memento of the baby, but they also want a digital experience to enhance their learning. Acute Cards is formatted as a baby book that is filled with clinician-approved interventions parents are encouraged to do every time they visit the hospital. Each intervention is linked with a QR code, which opens our app that provides information, videos, and step-by-step directions on how to perform that task. Now, parents can learn about the benefits and learn how to do these interventions without waiting for the nurse to be present. What is also unique is that we provide an audio component in the app, which will help guide parents through the interventions if they have their hands full and need to ask a question. Additionally, in our COVID world, it's important to keep visitors and parents informed about the latest best practices of the unit. Our modular format allows us to update the mobile app and print materials as quickly as the unit changes their policies. If Adriana had her product when she was hospitalized, instead of waiting around for staff members, she could pick up her booklet and choose exactly what intervention she wanted to do. Let's say she chooses skin to skin. She can scan that page in the booklet or simply open the app and find step-by-step guidance on how exactly to do that, shown in a simple, easy to understand format. If her hands are full and she can't scroll through the steps, she can ask her friendly voice assistant for help. Now, Aliana receives better parental bonding and improved clinical outcomes. Parents are informed and have a happier hospital experience, and nurses have more time to focus on clinical care. As mentioned earlier, FICARE can lower the baby's length of hospital stay. Studies show FICARE reduces it by 4 up to 13 days, which can save anywhere from $16,000 up to $52,000 per patient. Based on interviews with potential customers, we plan to sell acute cards as a yearly print and digital bundle for patient education directors or NICU managers. Our initial target market will be 5 of our local hospitals and partners, such as Hopkins, GBMC, U of M, and UCSF, who we've actively been collaborating with over the past 4 months. Finally, we have identified that the US has 983 NICUs within the over 6,000 hospitals, which will also need our help. However, our product translates to units outside of just the NICU. Pediatric ICUs, pediatric medical surgical units, and even skilled nursing facilities have a need for promoting more family integrated care. So we plan to expand into these markets down the road. Overall, we fall under the global market for patient engagement solutions, which was valued at $7.4 billion in 2015 and is expected to rise to $39.3 billion just in the next 4 years, demonstrating an increased interest in patient engagement solutions. For an average NICU unit of about 500 admissions a year, we plan to sell our product as an annual subscription package of $56,000. Our mission is to gain 10% of the NICU market share by 2025, or about 94 NICUs. Based on current projections, we will be profitable by year 2. Also, we expect these projections to change positively since reports indicate due to COVID, there will be an increase in births, hence increased NICU admissions within the next year. Within this market, we have identified several competitors. Acute Cards has an edge over the others based on the factors of information accuracy, accessibility, and literacy simplicity. Most importantly, our product has a heavy focus on implementing PHI-Care practices, something other patient education platforms such as Cranes or Emmy are missing. We began this project winning a medical hackathon competition in 2019, as Dr. Davison mentioned. In January, we reached out to the Hopkins NICU team and began gathering feedback to further our initial design. We will finish the initial MVP within the next month and begin applying for grants over the summer. With supportive feedback from the JHU hospital, we will launch a pilot program at the Hopkins NICU by October of this year. To achieve this goal, we have a wonderful team dedicated to bringing this product to life. As stated earlier, I'm Disha. Leo Lee, who has a background in psychology and design, Natasha, with a background in biomedical engineering and informatics, and George, who has business experience in technology startups and was a former NICU baby. Acute Cards was built on the concept of improving family integrated care, and we are lucky to have many people who believe in our mission. We appreciate the support and thoughtful mentorship from our colleagues at the Johns Hopkins NICU, Hopkins Patient Education Director Tom Bauer, our colleague at HexSite, mentors from UCSF, VCU Medical College of Virginia, supportive parents, and many more. Earlier this week, Aliana celebrated her 3rd birthday. Adriana and Jose like to remind the nurses how empowered they felt because we did family integrated care. To quote Adriana, "The scary and stressful times of being in the NICU was alleviated by the fact you guys involved us in her care, even though she was tiny and had wires coming out of her. It made us feel important, like Aliana needed us, and made the months in the NICU happier and much more bearable." Increasing PHI-Care in NICUs is not always easy and requires a culture change and involvement from all staff members. We are confident that Acute Cards will be a useful tool that will allow nurses and parents a better and easier way to go about accomplishing this. Remember Acute Cards, cards that care. Thank you for your time.
Well done, Disha. Thank you so much. You can stop sharing your slides. And I just wanted to say we are so proud of what you, Leo, Natasha, and George have done in coming together during the 16-week program. As you saw in the chat, Nick from ProTennis and Kristen from Be Well were impressed with your adorable slide at the end with the babies. They've seen a lot of pitches, so it takes a lot to get them to actively chat. So I think that was wonderful. It's been great to see you all growing through the course of this year. And at this time, I'm going to hand it off to our judges. Susan, why don't we start with you for a little bit of feedback, and then we will hear from Chris and then Claire.
Sure, that was fantastic. So excited to see what you've pulled together. I love the way that you integrated the QR codes into the actual touchy-feely cards that I think are so comforting to a new parent. So really enjoyed the presentation. Love to learn more about how you get this into the hands of NICU administrators. How do they purchase things? How do they typically buy? And so that we can get this in front of them.
Thanks so much for that feedback.
Thank you, Susan. And then Chris, we'll hand it to you.
Great. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having me on today's presentation. I thought you did a great job presenting. It was very clear, easy to understand. Your presentation skills were terrific. I think the two things that I would ask as a judge is the price the right price for your audience? It seems a little high to me from what I know of the marketplace that you're going after. And then the second thing I would say is really focusing on how you are going to go out and actually sell it. How do you get to the decision makers would be two things to try to add into the presentation. Maybe a little price discovery and a go-to-market. Great job.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Chris. And Disha and team, I know you guys are taking detailed notes, and these are items that you're going to collectively address as well. So it's just wonderful to have opportunities for individuals like Chris, Susan, and Claire to be giving you these helpful tips as you take things to the next level. So Claire?
Yes, thank you everyone for having me today. It's lovely to be with all of you Hopkins folks. My feedback is, as a parent myself who had a child in the NICU for 17 days, I am not sure I personally spend a lot of time learning a new app while there's people throwing things at me constantly. And so I'm interested in getting both the feedback from, more feedback from parents who are using it, and then also feedback from how easy it is for nurses to incorporate this into all of the other things that they're doing over the course of the day. And I imagine, given your advisory board, you have done that, but I think it would be valuable in the presentation for investors to really get a better understanding of how long does it take for a parent to understand how the app works, how much time are they saving versus looking at a 3-ring binder, how much time is a nurse saving, and you know, how much more valuable is it to have your app versus the status quo?
Wonderful. Thank you, Claire. So Disha and team, great work. I know that you've all been juggling a lot. Just as a personal example, I can say, for you, Disha, having been a NICU nurse yourself at UCSF, and then coming out to Baltimore, would you have ever guessed that during your journey, as you're getting ready to finish up your last quarter, you go home for spring break to California to be with your family before you come back for fourth quarter? And then everything changes. So we are thinking of you out in the Bay Area. Thank you for all that you've done. We're proud of you and all of your colleagues. I know you have really juggled a lot during this time. We're going to give the judges a few minutes to tally up their feedback. And at this point, what we'll do is, I think we have our first trivia question. Is that right, Jasmine? Wonderful.
That's right.
Okay, great. So for those of you who are attending, we have a little trivia break. What was the top digital health related hashtag of 2019? Hashtag medicine, hashtag digital health, hashtag health tech, hashtag AI. So go ahead and click away while we give the judges some time to fill out their feedback. They'll be passing that along to our team at Chesapeake Digital Health Exchange that's tallying up the results for all of the teams. How are we looking, Jasmine? Do we have a certain percentage of individuals that have voted?
Yeah, we're about 72% voted.
Great. We'll give it about another 10 seconds. How's that sound? What was the top digital health related hashtag of 2019? Okay, great. So Jasmine's ended the poll, and don't leave us in suspense, Jasmine. You're going to share those results for us. And looks like 42% picked hashtag AI. A close 39% picked hashtag digital health. And Jasmine, the correct answer is?
#AI. So it seems like we got it right.
Yeah, great job, everyone. Brilliant. So #AI was the top digital health related hashtag of 2019. So at this time, Jasmine, I think I'm going to bring to the deck our next team, Consent Ready. So Dr. Cates, if you would like to go ahead and share your slides, I think the attendees are looking forward to this next presentation. And I'm going to introduce Dr. Cates by saying that he is a practicing urologist and an instructor here at Johns Hopkins Medicine. So Dr. Cates, if you would like to go ahead and share your slides, we'll be ready to start your clock in just a minute.
You can go ahead and start it. We're going to start with a poll.
Oh, fantastic. That sounds great. So Max, you are on the clock. Consent ready. Take it away.
Thank you so much. So my name is Max Cates. I'm a surgeon at Johns Hopkins Hospital, and I'm here to talk to you today about Consent Ready. So we're going to have some fun here and start with a little poll. So mind bringing up the poll. The question is, how many of you have ever had a surgery or a procedure? And give you some ideas about what that could be. And just to load the boat, we'll include your own birth. So those no's should hopefully turn to yeses. Okay, and we can go on to the next question, which is, of those of you who have had a procedure or a surgery, how many of you remember the informed consent process? All right, and let's try to see the results if we can. So about half and half. Very good. So many of you do not remember the informed consent process, and yet this is the most important legal and compliance document in the medical record. What is an informed consent? So it's a legally binding contract. It's subject to compliance requirements. And its job is essentially to help the patient and inform them of risks, benefits, and any alternatives to the procedure they're about to undergo. What does it look like in 2020? Well, believe it or not, in 2020, an informed consent at almost every hospital in America is a hand-filled out written form. It's not standardized. It's often filled out right on the spot to be signed by the patient immediately prior to surgery. This is cumbersome for the patient who's anxious and nervous and preoccupied about the procedure they're about to undergo. It's also cumbersome for myself, the surgeon, who is tasked with essentially paring down a long, thoughtful discussion into a rushed 30-second interaction right before the patient's surgery. But it's also a headache for another group of people, and that's the compliance officers and the legal affairs officers at every hospital in the United States. Because when a patient sues for malpractice, the consent form is the legal document of record. Failure to provide informed consent in the state of Maryland is the leading cause of malpractice litigation. Similarly, when the government does an audit, they ask for written informed consents. And that's the most common cause of hospital citations, because 70% of these informed consents are filled out incorrectly. And these citations can build up and ultimately lead to Medicare actually withholding payment. That's a disaster for the hospital. And last, in this COVID era, the idea that the last frontier of written forms are informed consents is known by most everyone. And I think we all acknowledge that that is going to change sooner rather than later. So what is our solution? Our solution is Consent Ready. This is a web application that can be accessed from the phone or the computer. The surgeon clicks on a given date and sees their planned surgeries for that day. They can then create consent forms that can be sent to the patient well in advance of their surgery. When the surgeon clicks on that form and sends it to the patient, they can access and make this consent form. And all of the components of the consent are already pre-filled out with the consent for that given procedure. So based on the procedure, it's all pre-filled out. Now we've incorporated an AI component whereby the application suggests to add additional risks and benefits based on the consents for that same procedure among other surgeons have filled out in the broader community. Once completed, the surgeon can then publish the consent form and send it to the patient well in advance of their day of surgery. Now, what does the patient see? So the patient sees this form that is sent to them well in advance of their surgery, and they can alert the surgeon to any questions or concerns that they may have by clicking on this yellow arrow. And what that will essentially do is it can inform the actual consent discussion on the day of surgery. So it alerts the surgeon, hey, there's an issue here. They're going to want to talk to me about this. They can acknowledge the consent with no further action needed to let the surgeon know, hey, I've seen this consent form, looks good to me, no major questions. And that alerts the surgeon that they're good to proceed with an abbreviated discussion. The hospital compliance officer will be able to access their own view whereby they can perform random internal auditing, both at the department level, but also at the individual surgeon level. And this will allow them to assess compliance statistics at the individual or department level and identify areas of improvement in anticipation of an audit. Now, what's our competition? Our competition is essentially patient education consenting apps that are really geared towards the patient experience and the user experience, and then compliance software apps that are really geared towards maximizing compliance. And we envision ourselves as essentially bridging this divide. So we have the user and a quality user experience, and then we also have the back end, the compliance software tool. And to that end, our IP is essentially in two distinct areas. In the surgeon view, the application will have a crowdsourcing feature that essentially suggests to add additional risks and benefits based on what other surgeons are putting in their consents for that same procedure in the broader community. Similarly, it will assess, on the compliance view, there will be a compliance algorithm for internal auditing. What's our market? So of the 6,146 hospitals in the United States, we view our total addressable market as 4,233 non-government hospitals. Of that, we have a serviceable market of 860 hospitals on the East Coast and a target market of 86 hospitals within that service market. What's our growth strategy? So our growth strategy is really interesting. We view ourselves as essentially having surgeon super users. These are freemium users, it's free to use, and we want surgeon advocates because the buyer of this software application is going to be the hospital compliance officer and regulatory and legal affairs. And we've learned that through our interviews. So what we want to be able to do is have surgeon super users, and I will be the first super user during this rollout. And then we want to be able to go to the compliance officers and the regulatory affairs team and say, this is a great product for you. And we have this built-in set of super users that are already using it and love it. To that end, we view our rollout as essentially being a proof of concept. Later this year, I will be the first super user during this rollout within my department of Urology. And then into spring of 2021, we view a wider release within the department to finish development and have more surgeon advocates. In the fall of 2021, we view gaining our first major contracts, and then into 2022, spreading it with further business development into other institutions. This is our team. I am a surgeon that I run a translational science lab and innovation lab with over $1 million in funding. Kunal Maiti is a serial entrepreneur and our technical lead. Sharad Balian has extensive startup experience and has been leading our design efforts, and Jess Krogan has extensive experience in the healthcare and pharma sector. Thank you very much, and I look forward to getting some feedback from all of you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cates. And I do want to just take a moment to say that it's really impressive to have someone who's an assistant professor of medicine, who is, the director of the bladder cancer program, bringing in research grant money and going through a 16-week accelerator that switched from in-person to virtual mid-course. So really well done. And thank you for what you're doing right now, Max, in ensuring that patient care goes on for those who need it, despite the circumstances that we're in. Not sure how you juggle it all, but thank you and great work to your team. At this time, I am going to pass it along to Chris College to provide feedback as one of our judges now. Chris, take it away.
Great. Dr. Cates, great presentation, very easy to understand, very easy to follow. Well done on the presentation skills. I think one of the questions I would have is about workflow and whether the informed consent should be separate from all of the other intake documents that happen when you come in for surgery or not. I don't know the answer, but I do remember filling out informed consents amongst a smattering of a lot of other forms, maybe 20, and wondering whether this should be more inclusive of a solution, or whether there are really good reasons to have it separate from the rest of the intake forms. And then the other question I would have for you is, it seems to make a lot of sense if you can get people in front of computers and give them time to understand and answer those questions. Maybe it's just me and not the other 300 people on the call today, but I really struggle with, glasses and small phones when it comes to small print. So I would just really have to think about how much can you jam onto that phone screen. But great job.
Thanks so much, Chris. And at this time, we'll hand it over to Claire.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Cates. I don't know how you do all of that, but congratulations. I applaud you. My question has to do with how you're gonna, two questions actually. One is how you're going to coordinate and work with Epic, given that Epic and Cerner together are doing so much of informed consent right now. I just think they're not necessarily going to be a competitor of yours. They're going to be something that you have to end up becoming a part of. And so I'm interested in sort of that go-to-market as a continued discussion. And then secondly, really the go-to-market, what's the pricing model? Who is actually paying for it? And then how does the decision process get made? You need a compliance officer to approve it. You need super users. My guess is they don't always coordinate or talk to each other. And I'm sure you need the technology office to coordinate as well. So I think in a future presentation, it would be helpful to understand exactly how that approval process works, not just at Johns Hopkins, but as you expand beyond that. But overall, excellent presentation, very clear. That 70% number is really interesting, and I was not aware of it. So thank you very much, and keep up the good work.
Great, thanks, Claire. And I will now hand it over to Susan. Susan.
Yes, thanks so much. That was a fantastic presentation. I really love the natural style that you used to present. I shared the same questions that Claire had about Epic and Cerner, and I wonder from a hospital, perspective, how you feel about integrating yet another piece of a software or technology into what the clinicians are already using. I think that it's a great point that, being prepared and ready for conversations with Epic and Cerner would be an important part of the pitch. And then also I wondered from your pitch, the thing that I wondered most was, what are the key outcomes measures that you're looking to impact? So that 70% number really does pop right off of the page, but is that what you're measuring? And is there a way to measure the relationship between using this new technology with lowering the number of non-compliant procedures, as well as the costs associated with those subsequent lawsuits?
Great. So Max, I know you're chomping at the bit and you have all sorts of great responses. But again, because of purposes of time with our team at Anchor Ventures and CDHX, we're going to keep you chomping at the bit. I know you want to tackle that question. Rick had one as well, who's attending, asking about Epic and Cerner offering e-consent and them covering 50% of hospitals and how you would compete with that installed EHR base. There was another question from Norm that came in about how many cases in Maryland are lost each year based upon lack of informed consent. And I know you have all those answers, Max, but we are going to let you take that offline, and great work to you. Again, thank you for all that you've done. We're gonna take you off the hot seat now, and the judges will have a few minutes to tally up their scores for consent ready. Again, great work, Dr. Cates, and thanks to everyone for the great chat and dialogue. It's wonderful to have so many of you from the local digital health ecosystem in the Delmarva region. And many of you with ties to TEDCO. Really glad that you're all on. So Jasmine, I think we have another trivia question. So let's go ahead and bring this one up. Small businesses, startups, make up what percentage of Maryland's businesses? So I will say we had a trial run of this. I'm not going to vote again, but I think quite a few of us got this wrong last time. So this was a very interesting question. Small businesses, startups make up what percentage of Maryland's businesses? And Nick, I see your question. Nick, with always the brilliant question. This isn't for a grade, Nick, but good question. Is this by revenue or quantity? What should we say, Jasmine?
I believe it's quantity.
Mm-hmm. So how many do we have that have voted so far, Jasmine?
We're at 70% again.
70% again. Not necessarily the correct answer, but we will let it go for 10 more seconds. And after we wrap this one up, we're going to be hearing from the team at AIRS. So Jasmine, let's see if folks fared better than when we had our tech rehearsal run. Okay, so 39% picked 70%, then 85%, followed by 18% picking 50%, a lot of percentages here. But last but not least, the minority of you who chose 99.5% are correct. So Jasmine, just like the tech rehearsal, right? And I think a few more got it right today because some of you from the tech rehearsal probably voted. So 99.5%. So really great. Everything that's going on in the Maryland region and expanding to Northern Virginia, DC, that is the entire ecosystem that CDHX is looking to help support. So great to have many of you on here. And at this time, I am going to say that it's time for our third team to pitch. AIRS, feel free to share your slides, and I'll be introducing Dr. Michael Young. Michael is an ENT doc here at Hopkins, and your 10-minute clock will begin right now. Take it away, Dr. Young.
Great. I'm going to assume everyone can see the screen. Hi, my name is Michael. I'm one of the members on the AIRS team. I want to start by first asking you to imagine that you're sleeping with your partner or spouse, and they snore so loudly that they actually stop breathing during the night. It's really annoying, but it's also kind of terrifying. And at this point, what usually happens is that you'll try to convince your partner to get it checked out. So maybe on the one hand, you have some partners that listen to what you say and go to the doctor and get it checked out. But on the other hand, maybe your partner tells you that maybe you worry too much and never really does anything about it. So I wanted to start with a poll question indicating what the problem is. How many of you people snore or have a partner who you know snores? Maybe we'll just take 5 or 10 seconds to let people answer that question. Okay, great. So yeah, most people say that they either do snore or know someone, a partner who does snore. So why is this a problem? Really, almost half of all Americans snore at night. And when it gets bad enough, you actually stop breathing for brief periods due to a collapsed airway, leading into a condition known as sleep apnea. Sleep apnea and snoring are correlated, but it's not something we usually think about. People will find themselves extra exhausted at work or falling asleep while driving, and they don't often address it until it's been such a problem where they've been fired or something other thing bad happens. So one of the biggest problems to helping patients with sleep apnea is getting diagnosed. And here is the current patient management process, which involves seeing multiple care providers, where patients see a clinician or get a gold standard diagnostic sleep study before treatment. And what we see here is that patients often don't know why being treated for sleep apnea is important or are lost in the process. There's nothing in between sort of not knowing you have sleep apnea all the way to getting a gold standard diagnostic test and all those barriers in between getting to where they need to go. So our solution really targets these patient drop-off points along the diagnostic pathway for more convenient screening. It's getting those patients who don't know they have sleep apnea to getting to where they need to be to get treatment done. So what's the impact of being able to detect the risk of sleep apnea earlier? Those people without sleep apnea are about 60 to 70% more likely to develop heart disease. And in patients with previous heart attacks, the risk of adverse events when they go to hospital is about 4 times higher. By treating sleep apnea, we would be able to curb an approximate $80,000 of charges in hospital charges when people do incur heart attacks. And then additionally, on the other side, treating sleep apnea could even result in a 40 to 50% decrease in missed days of work for people that it affects. Our company, AIRS, is developing a mobile device software as a service application to help snorers quantify their own risk of having sleep apnea using a proprietary algorithm that records noises produced during sleep. So what does that look like? With our service, patients will be able to screen themselves in the comfort of their own home with a research-proven algorithm that automatically sends data to the relevant healthcare providers and connects them onto the sleep apnea diagnostic pathway. For example, they'll go see their doctor. The doctor will say, hey, I think you do have sleep apnea, or I think you should test yourself. They'll download this app, and they'll be able to do it in the comfort of their own home, fill out a relevant health history profile, and record their noises produced during their own sleep. And once it's completed, these results will be sent to their doctor via email. This is sort of how simple and easy it would be to use our product. So since this app is going to be used in the home setting, the microphones from the mobile devices themselves will be used to record the data that we need. Scientific research has shown that snoring intensity is greater than 53 decibels, inspiratory sounds greater than 40 decibels, or snoring frequency that's greater than 25% can indicate sleep apnea. In order to use these scientific thresholds to demonstrate sleep apnea, we need to correlate audio signals with airflow and decibel meters to show that they have similar variability. And then noticing this variability, we can quantify the audio signals and aggregate this data for us to compare to scientifically proven data to determine the patient's risk for having sleep apnea. So on the back end, all these algorithms quantify the data that we need, such as intensity, frequency, inspiratory, and respiratory rates to determine their risk of having sleep apnea. Then we aggregate this data into scores that categorize the patients into high or low risk of sleep apnea. So this is what the user will see on their end. This is a picture of snoring from the recorded audio. What you see here on the left are 3 different snore bursts. The green color represents periods of quiet sleep. The orange means that there was light snoring, and the red means that the snoring was so loud that it tells us the intensity and frequency of that snoring as well. On the right, users will be able to compare the results to thresholds from normal snoring patterns. And from here, we'll be able to send their data to their providers. So why choose AIRS? You may have heard about a number of other home diagnostic sleep study kits or devices used for sleep apnea at home. AIRS really leverages low cost and the fact that it can be downloaded onto a user's native device or phone, really, with no extra labor support or physical external devices needed to be purchased or mailed to you to do this screening. Other competing products in the market range from sleep trackers with really no formal research-proven performance validation to bulky medical devices that are expensive and cumbersome sometimes for patients to use at home. Over the course of 6 weeks, we tested some of our hypotheses and our initial value propositions by conducting a number of interviews with patients, healthcare providers, sleep study researchers, and insurance representatives. And what did we learn? So one of the important things that we know is that patients don't recognize the importance of diagnosing and treating their sleep apnea. They think it's something that is bothersome during the daytime, but doesn't really have any deep health repercussions. And providers, on the other hand, have a hard time convincing patients that sleep apnea testing is important. And then bridging that gap is that providers and patients didn't really have anything in between going from 0 to the gold standard sleep study in the lab. So there's something of a gap that exists there. So based on what we learned, we figured we have three main customer segments that we'd like to address. The first is patients and healthcare providers. By efficiently connecting more sleep apnea patients with formal diagnosis and treatment, patient health outcomes can be improved. And our solution is also less expensive and easier to use than many other home diagnostic kits currently on the market. Second, our solution provides value for health systems and insurance companies by reducing overall healthcare costs due to connecting previously undiagnosed sleep apnea patients with appropriate treatment. And then finally, we can provide value for existing sleep apnea treatment companies. Our solution is a screening tool aimed at expanding the total market size of customers with diagnosed sleep apnea, making it possible for us to potentially partner with established players instead of competing with them. Our market opportunity looks at those who snore, and it's clear that even at estimates where we achieve 10% market penetration, we have access to almost 7 million snorers and a potential total market size of almost 140 million. We're looking to begin by creating strategic partnerships for our go-to-market strategy. First is to identify and work with research partners for our clinical pilots and trials in home settings. Second, we'll approach health systems and insurers with letters of intent while we continue to produce our minimally viable products so that we can launch with these partners initially. And then lastly, our plan is to license this technology to existing sleep apnea treatment companies. So going forward, this is our plan for the next year. From now to September, we're going to continue working on our IP development by enhancing our algorithm and filing our patent application. And then in the fall, we'll build our engineering team to help build out our minimally viable product while also developing our UX and OS designs. And then finally, next year in 2021, we'll be conducting performance testing in the form of laboratory sleep studies and home pilots. And at this point, we'll continue to iterate on our product and prepare to apply for an SBIR. We're currently submitting a report of invention to HTV and are currently working on improving the accuracy of our IP. As discussed, the IP manager patent filing will follow as soon as our algorithm is fully developed. And finally, our team consists of Moody, the inventor of our IP, and a research fellow at Hopkins Research Lab, which focuses specifically on sleep, as well as myself, the business lead, and also an ear, nose, throat surgeon, Christina, who is our design lead, and Lydia, who's our technical development lead. And just to finish, the sleep apnea diagnostic market is currently a vastly untapped opportunity that is really ripe for change. We truly believe that AIRS is positioned to create a paradigm shift in the way that patients are identified and really connect them to the appropriate treatment. Great. Well, with that, we'll take some questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Young. Well done. And it's really been great to see your team come together over the course of the past 6 months. And one thing that I wanted to mention before I hand it off to the judges, Kristen Valdez from Be Well Connected Health made a great point on the chat. Fun fact, sleep is the #1 self-reported health issue across all the populations we serve. Less than 2% have ever been screened for sleep apnea. Wow, right? So Michael, if you want to go ahead and stop sharing your slides, I'll pass it off to the judges. And one thing I wanted to mention is, for those of you that are looking at the pitches and seeing them in their different stages, just know that a few years ago, I think, Chris, we were in, I believe you were one of the judges as well on the final pitch, and Kristen and Be Well had been presenting what they were doing. And it was so nice, Kristen, to see in early March the news results about your company raising a $16 million round for your personalized health platform. So to those teams that are pitching, lots of good things can come from the HexSite final pitch. So with that, I will hand it off to Claire Johnson.
Great, thank you very much, Doctor. I really appreciate it. It's clear that there's a huge problem and that you are one of the solutions. As somebody who looks at a lot of companies in this space, it's very, very crowded space. And I know you're at a very early stage, but it would be really important to understand how yours competes, whether you have an Apple phone or a Samsung phone, and exactly how much better or worse your data is than the myriad of other apps that is out there. And so I think it's going to be really important as you think through raising money, how to compare your performance first off, and then how to compare your cost with the myriad of other options. I agree with you that there are lots of different entities who might buy your product, but it wasn't clear either the performance compared to the myriad of other options. And I know that you need to be, that you will be working on that, but that's going to be really critical before you are able to get investment dollars, and then just what your costs are compared to all of the competition. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Claire, and really appreciate you on the chat earlier, posting some information about the Maryland Momentum Fund and some of the requirements there. So I encourage folks to scroll up and check that out. Susan, we'll hand it to you next.
Thank you. I absolutely love the presentation. Thank you so much. I really liked your presentation style. It just felt very natural. And a few comments. One is, first of all, there's some useful analogs for this particular market. So I think about hearing care. A screening tool is so incredibly valuable to right size a particular market, whether that is to target a market or to actually grow a particular market. Screening tools are invaluable. So there are some good analogs that you can definitely look at and learn from. I'd be interested to know more about the clinician role in this. So if this is something that a clinician can prescribe right in their office when they're seeing a patient, you should download this app. It's very useful to us, and have some sort of clinician involvement in helping to bring the product to market. That would help differentiate it from other products. I also like the idea that perhaps your partners would be incented to pay for the cost of the app for the end user, because if you are driving business to the gold standard, then they may have incentive to make sure that this app is available to others. So those are some great advantages to the product that you've put together. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks, Susan. I also sent a link that has some information about Johns Hopkins Healthcare Solutions and the wonderful work that Susan and her team do there. So Chris, we'll wrap up with you.
Terrific, Dr. Young. Great presentation, great skills. I love simple solutions for big problems, and they usually become the best investments when you can really just solve a problem with a simple solution. So I don't have a lot of advice other than what we've already heard from Susan and Claire, but I think where I would focus almost all of my time and effort would be on the accuracy level. What's the false positive? How accurate can you make it? If you can make it a very accurate diagnostic tool that costs basically next to nothing, since everybody has a phone in their pocket, you could have a really big winner. But if you have something that's giving false positives or false negatives, it's going to be really hard to differentiate from a lot of the other things that are out there. So that's where I would focus all my time. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks, Chris. So Michael, I know you and team will take all of these good questions to heart. It's a lot to include in 10 minutes, but I think you also have some great feedback in the comment section. Kurt McCarthy, who is has a military background, writes that marketing to the VA for investment might be an option. And we had a great question that piggybacks a little bit on what Chris just mentioned. Rick had posted, can you describe the learning training data set versus the evaluation data set in your data? Is this using a neural network layer? And is the algorithm fixed, or does it float with additional cloud obtained data? So some excellent feedback, and I think it's great, Michael, for you and your team to be hearing the types of questions that arise based on your presentation. I know that Dr. Cates has taken advantage of the chat to follow up with those that have asked some questions, and I encourage you and your team to do the same as well, Michael. Great work. We're going to take you off the hot seat. How's that sound?
Great, thanks so much.
Yeah, wonderful. So at this time, we'll ask the judges to tally up their scores and do some of the feedback and send them over to our CHDX team that is tabulating some of the results. Before we bring up our fourth team, Perfect Pass, followed by Rose, I am going to pull up our next trivia question. So let's see how folks fare on this one. So, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services announced that what number of additional services could be delivered through telehealth to help combat the spread of COVID-19. And if I'm not mistaken, this number changes every, Q7 days or so. There have been all sorts of changes in the past few months, which I know you'll be hearing about with our final group as well. And many of you in the digital health space carefully tracking all of this policy, all of these new initiatives, the huge change in pace in telehealth, telemedicine that you heard about from Dr. Hasselfeld. So again, 25, 40, 80 or 120? Okay, Jasmine, how are we? How many have we heard from?
We're at about 60%.
Oh my goodness. Come on, folks.
It's harder. It's a harder question.
Yeah, not as hard as, you know, do you or your spouse snore, but hard nonetheless. So the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, let's see. We can go ahead and wrap it up now, Jasmine. And okay, so it looks like 40% of you picked 80, followed by 40, 120, and 25. So the correct answer is 80, and that's the one that was picked by most of you. So it's a crowd that is in the know. Well done. We also are getting some questions about the AIRS website. So Michael, I'll let you and team and Moody respond to Michael McShay's question there. Great work. At this time, I am going to introduce Dr. BJ Acharya, team number 4, Perfect Pass. You know, Dr. Acharya is very humble. We're colleagues in general internal medicine here at Johns Hopkins, and you know, he won't say this, so I absolutely will. He has been one of the physicians that has just been on so many shifts during COVID-19, 7 days a week. What is it, 10, 11, 12 hours that you're doing tonight? Maybe 13, I think. BJ, you're gonna be starting your shift this evening. As a nocturnist, someone who's really been familiar with taking care of inpatients, I know it's been a tremendous experience to see senior physicians, younger physicians in training being put in a position to be receiving patients during COVID-19 in positions where perhaps several months ago they would be working with a lot more colleagues on those shifts. And I think this concept of handoffs and patient safety and errors now more than ever is important. So I just wanted to say, every time we see the shift schedule and GIM go out, I know that your name is on so many of them. Not sure how you've juggled all of this during this time, and thank you for what you're doing, especially on the COVID-19 floors. BJ, you can go ahead and share your slides, and I know the audience is thankful for what you do and looks forward to hearing about Perfect Pass. Your time starts now.
Thank you, Dr. Davison, and thank you everyone for joining us today and listening to our ideas. As Dr. Davison said, I'm a physician at Johns Hopkins. I'm also a faculty at the Armstrong Institute of Patient Safety and Quality. My background is in hospital medicine and patient safety and quality improvement. Today I'm presenting you our team's idea of Perfect Pass, structured automated clinical handoff. As you probably know, the third most leading cause of death is medical error in the United States. And every year, almost 300,000 people die from it. And out of those 300,000 deaths, nearly 30% of them are caused from poor communication. So at any given time in a hospital, there are multiple providers, multiple clinicians reaching out, talking to each other, communicating clinical information for a patient through different modalities, whether it's through EMR notes, e-chat, pages, emails, faxes, printouts, different physicians coming in at different times to do different shifts. Especially as a hospitalist, I work in different shifts, 12-hour shifts usually. Come in at 9:30. There are lots of patients, around like 40 or so that I cover. Some hospitals, overnight physicians cover up to 100 patients. So there's lots of different variables that you need to be aware of all these patients. And in COVID time, lots of patients are getting sicker. A lot of sick patients are still being managed on the floor because there are not enough ventilators. So what it does is this creates a situation of multiple distractions that leads to poor communication and eventually leads to preventable medical errors. And just to give an example of how I work, every patient that I care for has something, what we call it, a handoff, where pertinent clinical information is entered in this 3 boxes that gives you clinical information, what the night person should do or the incoming person, clinician should do, and also what the day person should do as a reminder or to keep track of the clinical care. This is also copied and documented in a daily progress note. So what happens like when I have to print these out, this is what it looks like when you print out a sign out so that you can carry it around if you don't have access to a desktop. These are not accessible through mobile devices. If you have 100 patients, you have 100 pages of these documented printouts of handoff. So if you were called in the middle of the night for a patient that is not doing good, trying to figure out what is important is next to impossible. So when we were doing our interviews, one of the Harvard hospitalists said, it is like an airline ticket. There's just so many information that a user really doesn't need. And that actually clogs crucial elements so that we can take care of patients better. So what we are proposing is Perfect Pass, EMR integrated structured handoff tool that is accessible via web and mobile device. It'll help clinicians track critical to-do lists. It'll actively monitor patients' physiological and laboratory data. And based on those data points, we'll predict the risk of clinical deterioration. And that is our key goal to improve patient care and reduce medical errors. So this is what we are proposing. When we click a button called Right Handoff, which is inbuilt in our EMR system, this is going to pop up either in context within the EMR or as like a separate website that you can pull up. It'll quickly give me all my patients that I'm responsible for. We can sort it through high severity based on the software's algorithm, or any new patients that I need to see so that you can start your rounds earlier. And if you hover over a patient that I want to quickly review, it'll give you a quick summary of the patient, all the tasks that I need to follow, and what are the things I want the day team to remember. For example, if I want to follow up a blood count of a patient at like 11 p.m., I can quickly click a reminder button so that I get a notification that the count should be followed up. If I want to do a deeper dive on the patient's information, look at the labs, look at the vitals, what are the medications that are being ordered, I can quickly double click on it, get the important information, whether they speak English, what's their next of kin, how do I contact them. If I want to trend the labs, I can quickly trend it. If I want to see the x-ray, I can click on a button that says show imaging, and I can look up the x-ray right here. I haven't left the platform once. If I were to do all of these things at this time, I would probably click like more than 100 times just to get information on one patient. Similarly, we have accompanying mobile access that will also be able to do almost all the things that we're providing on the desktop platform. So our value add is we are providing a structured yet customizable format to inform clinicians between shifts of what are the important issues they need to address. It is easily accessible, as I just showed you. And the underlying architecture is about patient safety. It'll actively track. If you have 100 patients with COVID and you're trying to track 10 different lab values for each of them, you need like a support. And that's where our AI and decision support tool comes in. It'll improve your handoff, it'll reduce your burnout, and with layers of EMR integration, help improve patient care. Our first target market is major academic centers, and our first customers is Johns Hopkins, where I work, and a teaching hospital affiliated with Harvard, where I was for the last 7 years before I joined Hopkins. We'll be using it as a freemium model for 3 months. It's usually that's based on our data that shows adequate uptake of any new product. We'll be charging per user. Other variables that we'll be considering when pricing is customization, how deep the integration is, whether they want 24-hour values or 48-hour lab values, decision support, and then continued training, as well as we hope to build our data analytics capacity so that we can do analysis, exports, do research and into outcomes and cost and other things. So when we look at the market of communication errors, savings, we tend to look at things in a combined sort of holistic manner. These are preventable medical errors that could also include direct costs to the hospitals, health systems, ACOs, as well as malpractice costs and indirect costs to patients. If a hospital has more than 200 beds, it has been calculated that each hospital, on an average, on the lower sort of range, spends costs around like $20 million of errors-related cost. So when you look at Hopkins, we estimate around like $20 million of potential savings. And if we just look at the communication aspect of it, we hope that we are able to save around like $6 million just focusing on handoff and communication. So we do have a few competitors in this area, Medisas, WeHandoff, and Transformative Health. And both EMR systems, Epic and Cerner, do have their own inbuilt handoff, but we are focusing on like our predictive analysis, automated task tracking, and clinical decision support to make it much more easier and more acceptable within the physician community. We'll be focusing on very well-known and established via different clinical trials, something called IPASS structure of handoff. It's a methodology of how you provide clinical information to another clinician. We'll be using proprietary like app integration and an EMR integration API, as well as our clinical decision support algorithms will be proprietary, and we'll be filing for IP for that. Our current product development roadmap, we are actively seeking funds to develop a minimal viable product. We'll be working with the Hopkins Tech Ventures to build an IP, as well as continue our software development. We'll be working with the Johns Hopkins Technology Innovation Center to create algorithms to build decision support. And over the next 6 months, we'll be doing user testing with our hospitalist group where I work, as well as doing some data security and reliability, especially if you're deciding clinical information based on that. And then working on testing EMR integration. I'm also applying for an NIH grant to study the impact of handoff, the ability of softwares to reduce cognitive burden and also burnout, and thus like look for clinical outcomes. And eventually our aim is to expand the product market. We'll be investing mostly on software development, EMR integration, and business development. Our team is, Andrea is the design lead, Prasad is the technical lead, I'm the clinical lead, and Edgardo is the business lead. And thank you for listening to our idea and looking forward to your feedback.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, BJ. I know that you and your team are actually quite passionate about this topic. And one of the things that I wanted to mention is that prior to coming to Hopkins, BJ, you were up at Mass General and were part of the team that was working on IPASS, which I know you mentioned towards the end. So at this time, we are going to hand it off to Susan Carr to start with the feedback. Judges?
Thanks, BJ. Thank you so much for that great presentation. I really enjoyed it. I particularly enjoyed looking at the images. Just really did a great job of capturing the difference between the current standard and what you'd like to move us to. A couple of things that stood out to me. One is that I'm sure clinicians love this. I imagine the people that you worked with, that you pre-tested this with, would, loved the concept as well as the usability of it. And I thought a lot about the joy of medicine and how important it is to make things easier on clinicians so that they can experience the joy of medicine. That might be part of your future pitch, is the impact on clinicians. I noticed also that you targeted this to be less costly than the other competitors. And I thought that was interesting, and I wondered why that would be. As somebody that spends a lot of time doing pricing work, I wondered what the thought process there was to make yours less expensive. This is a hot area. There's probably going to be a lot of competition in this space, but I love what you've put together, and I look forward to seeing it advance. Thank you.
Thanks, Susan. Chris, I'll hand it over to you.
Terrific. Again, a great presentation. I think one of the areas that I would try to focus on is not cost savings from a error mitigation standpoint. I would try to focus on cost savings from a workflow and time saving for the clinicians, because most administrators aren't going to want to either admit that they have a problem on the big liability question. And in today's environment, not many administrators or hospital systems are buying things unless it actually saves them money in their budget, not in their liability. So I might think about trying to change that pitch on cost savings a little bit. And then I guess the last thing I would say is making sure that it is super simple, super integrated into the workflow and the EMR or whichever provider they're using is going to be the key to success, because I think along with that cost savings in the medical environment today, we're seeing a lot of doctors and a lot of clinicians push back on too many different pieces of software, too many different things to remember. So getting that tightly integrated, nicely integrated so it's simple, I think is probably the other key to success. Good job.
And nice job, BJ. Thank you very much for presenting. I think my comments are similar to Chris's and Susan's. I'm pretty shocked that there isn't already an app for this, and I know that there are lots of people working on it. So I would focus in your pitch deck why yours is quicker, better, faster. You know, everybody wants a to-do list, and the time savings and the cost savings. And I agree with Chris very much that hospitals are looking at how do we get more patients in and how do we get them out faster. And so focusing on how your app gets them from one place to the next is really important. And I just wish you much success. As a surgeon's daughter who talked about this all the time, it's very clear that it's a really important problem that needs to be solved. So good luck.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Wonderful. And yeah, so BJ, I know that your shift tonight starts at 9:30 p.m. And I do have to say, again, you're so humble, but so that everybody knows, we were texting earlier, right, BJ? It's an 11-hour shift tonight, and that you usually work 83 hours a week when you're on service, not counting the extra hours if a patient is sick or complex, 7 nights in a row. And that the last month, I just have to call out, has been so rough. 5 nights, 2 off, 7 nights, 5 off, 5 nights, 2 off, and then another 5 nights. So thank you to nocturnists like yourself and for the work that you're doing and also improving patient safety and addressing all of this. Good luck to you with your NIH grant, and hopefully today's session was helpful for your team in getting some additional feedback as well. At this time, judges, please go ahead and tally up your scores for each of the for the most recent presentation. And Jasmine, I think we have another trivia question, correct?
Correct.
Great. Due to COVID-19, virtual healthcare interactions are on pace to top how many interactions by the end of the year in the United States? I know this is a question on everyone's mind. So due to COVID-19, virtual healthcare interactions are on pace to top how many interactions by the end of the year in the United States? Is it 90 million, 500 million, 1 billion, or 6 billion?
We're at about 65% responded.
Okay, great. All right, Jasmine, let's see. Did people get it? So it's a tie between 500 million and 1 billion. So I believe the correct answer, Jasmine, is 1 billion?
That's correct.
Okay, so 1 billion is correct. So certainly the right time to be talking about innovations in digital health, because it's not just about the technology, but all of the systems that need to support that, all of the other changes in workflow. It's easier said than done, right, everybody? Dr. Acharya, thanks for putting your email into the chat. We continue to encourage others of you to share your information as well. This is a nice opportunity to virtually network with each other. Like I mentioned, during the during the year, during the 16 weeks of the HexSite program, it's always a pleasure on Fridays to stop by the room. As a HexSite faculty member, I've always been very impressed with what Dr. Paul Nagy, what Jasmine McNeil and the team have put together with this 16-week curriculum. And each week, watching the sessions, Ricky Venters from Johns Hopkins Tech Ventures speaking to the team. We've had Harriet from Johns Hopkins Healthcare Solutions talking about the ACG platform, other investors coming by and meeting with these teams, giving them feedback. And it was in February, actually, during one of the HexSite Friday sessions that we were thrilled to hear about the next group being selected for a particular opportunity. And I'm actually going to read an email that I received from Kavi Mishri, founder and CEO of Rose, Smarter Mental Health. And this was back in February. Hi, Ashwini. I wanted to send an exciting note about Rose's latest win. We are happy to report that we were one of 8 companies selected from over 500 applicants and from across 100 different countries to join the latest Halcyon Incubator cohort. This was so exciting for the team at Rose. And as I got that email, I was thrilled because I was hoping, living in Northern Virginia, that I'd be able to, take the metro into DC and be there for their incubator kickoff. Competing priorities arose. And next thing you know, we are in this time of stay-at-home orders and social distancing. And what we're hearing about Rose Smarter Mental Health is about the amazing services they are offering to the local community. You're going to hear a little bit about it now from Dr. Matt Peters, but I just wanted to say to everybody, this is one of the companies in the Chesapeake Digital Health Exchange portfolio that we're thrilled for you all to be hearing about. Not a day goes by that I don't see some new announcement about all that Rose has been doing. Dr. Matt Peters, thank you for the work that you've been doing clinically during this COVID-19 time period. I think the group will be very impressed with all that Rose has accomplished pre-COVID, intra-COVID. I don't think we can say post-COVID because we don't know when that's going to happen. So at this time, Dr. Peters, please take it away. Your clock starts now.
Thank you. It's great to be with you all today. My name is Dr. Matt Peters. I'm the Chief Medical Officer of Rose and an attending neuropsychiatrist at Hopkins. And we wanted to start by asking you guys a question. How has your life and the life of your family changed because of COVID-19? Thank you, Jasmine. Can we see the results? So as you can tell, this is not a normal time. And this question actually got me thinking about my family. Despite the fact that I get to do this amazing work at Hopkins, I'm constantly reminded by my parents of the high suicide rates and mental health crisis in my hometown. And this has only gotten worse in the setting of COVID-19. You see, I grew up in a small town in Pennsylvania. I loved growing up there. And this is an actual picture of the treehouse that we built as kids, obviously with my dad's help. But my hometown is considered a provider desert. In fact, there's not a single mental health provider in my entire hometown. And moving home is not an option for me and my growing family right now, but I've been lucky enough to meet a group of amazing people, grow Rose, and together we're building a mental health solution that can be used by anyone, anywhere. Mental health has a massive impact. 1 in 5 Americans experience a mental health condition at some point in their lifetime. And we see an 8 times higher risk of premature mortality in these individuals and a high global cost of over $1.7 trillion related to mental health disorders. And what we've created as a solution, Rose is a HIPAA-compliant platform sold in a B2B2C business model. It's easy, despite that on the back end, it's driven by sophisticated technology. Rose is a remote patient monitoring solution. We create virtual touch points and offer support no matter where a patient is located. Additionally, we're able to build out virtual care teams. Again, distance does not matter, including the patient's family and support system. To make things easier for providers and to help them really see the return on investment, we've added in a virtual remote patient monitoring billing assistant, which allows real-time tracking and documentation for ancillary revenue. And we're very excited to announce that in these times of COVID-19, we've updated the platform to include a comprehensive virtual replication of in-person care. everything from scheduling a visit to the positive parts of the waiting room, to completing a telehealth visit, to delivering content. This is the flow for Rose. Rose is primarily composed of two components, a patient-facing mobile application and a provider-facing dashboard. Between sessions, patients collect daily mental health activity using their application. Prior to a session, providers are able to collect feedback-informed care, which in many clinics is actually a requirement. They host telehealth sessions directly within the Rose platform, and when they're wrapping up, they're able to send curated content back to their user or their patient, again, directly within the platform, creating a complete mental health care technology package. Data comes into Rose in a number of ways. First, there's the standardized assessments, which include daily mood and anxiety scales, as well as longer assessments that get pushed out at timed intervals. We're very excited about our journaling functionality, which goes through an in-house natural language processing algorithm to pick out the emotions and the sentiments that are discussed in the journal entry and give that to the provider in a summarized way. This data gets used for two primary reasons. The first, to curate content that goes back to the user. This includes infographics, audio clips, video clips, etc., that the patients can use to do self-help. Additionally, we've created Rose Paths. This can be thought of as having a Rose provider in your pocket. We've developed the content in a way that it actually walks the patient user through it without them needing to have a provider there to help them. On the provider end, this data is used to create summary metrics. This allows the provider to review weeks worth of data in a matter of minutes. Additionally, we've created the ability to easily make reports for billing and to monitor key performance indicators. This makes Rose an interesting solution, not just to the providers, but also to the administrators. And as I mentioned, within the Rose platform itself, you're able to launch and host a telehealth session with your patient. This does not require downloading separate software. It actually launches within the Rose platform itself. We were lucky enough to complete a proof of concept study with Keypoint Mental Health Clinic in Baltimore, Maryland. This was a 5-week study that involved 30 individuals using the Rose platform and 15 individuals in a waitlist control group. We saw high daily usage with almost 80% of participants using the Rose app on every single day. We saw excellent scale completion with 97% of the participants completing their PHQ-9 and GAD-7 scales. And this would be enough to satisfy the feedback-informed care component of care delivery. And we saw positive health outcomes. 73% of the patients improved from having severe depression to more mild to moderate depression just within those 5 weeks. And we'll be launching a larger study to really think through what do those health outcomes look like. And I think a testament to what we've developed after we got the results back from this study, I started using it with my own patients. And being someone who cares a lot about the clinical care that I deliver, I can't think of a better testament to what we're working on. We have an initial target of 2 large business to consumer markets, mental health clinicians and primary care clinicians. Because of the mental health care shortage, primary care clinicians deliver around 80% of the mental health care in the United States. And together, these 2 markets represent around 1 million clinicians in the United States alone. And for the primary care clinicians, they're really looking for a solution that could be the non-pharmacologic component of their mental health care delivery. And this was one of the impetuses for developing Rose Paths, because it does give them a treatment modality that they don't need to think through themselves. We have an immediate go-to-market strategy. We're hitting traditional sales. We hire traditional sales reps with existing clinician relationships. And during COVID-19, we're offering Rose for free for 60 days for any providers that on board. We have a very detailed digital marketing campaign, and on a weekly basis are now emailing over 125,000 clinicians. This is up from just 5,000 to 6,000 clinicians just a few weeks ago. We've been developing partnerships actively. We have a partnership with the City of Baltimore and Thrive New York City in New York City. We are leveraging connections within the Startup Health Network, the Halcyon Accelerator Network, and our Johns Hopkins Network. And based on a recommendation we got from one of our potential investors, we've been approaching associations actively. And we recently heard back from the American Psychological Association that they will be featuring us as a product to use. Looking at our current pipeline, we have a number of business deals in the pipeline that are coming to fruition. The most important column in this table is the weighted annual recurring revenue wins that we expect by the end of August 2020. And at that point, we expect to be at $235,000 in ARR. So we are a software as a service business. This is an example slide that we would provide to a primary care clinician to help them show the value of Rose. If you think of a patient panel size of around 1,500, which is conservative for a primary care provider, and you take just 125 of those patients and have them use Rose for remote patient monitoring, provider stands to gain an almost $17,000 increase in revenue. And if you compare that to the Rose monthly recurring revenue of $1,250, it's very easy for the providers to understand why this would be a good return on investment. As I mentioned, we have a revenue forecast to be on track for $235,000 by August 2020. We're planning to do 1.5 million in ARR by the end of 2020. And our goal that we set for ourselves is by the end of 2021 to be at 6.5 million. Rose exists in a space where there are competitors, but we are very proud of what we built and the way that we're differentiating ourselves. We are and will remain to be evidence-based, and we're proud of our real-time sentiment analysis, which is a unique feature in this particular market. We're also proud of the way that we've de-risked our platform by going to third-party legal review and HIPAA compliance review. And additionally, we've created this virtual visit package, which again is a standalone, a differentiator from the other companies that exist in this space. So you might ask, why Rose? Well, we have content experts actually building the product. So Rose going into the future has longevity because we can update the platform based on what the current trends are. It's a complete mental health technology package. You get the remote patient monitoring and the virtual visits. And as I mentioned, we're very proud to be evidence-based, and we plan to remain that way. We've had some excellent traction. We've been accepted into 2 accelerator programs, both the Hexsite Accelerator and the Halcyon Accelerator, and we're accepted as a startup health portfolio company. We now have 170 freemium health providers on the platform who will convert 60 days after they signed up. And we're proud to have 5 clinical pilots under developed. These are primarily at Johns Hopkins Medicine and with Mercer Medicine in Georgia. We've also had the opportunity to do a number of interviews and be featured in a few news articles lately. And this is just some examples from that. And it's been really fun for the team to have these opportunities. Our ask is we're looking for an investment or a referral for a small $150,000 friends and family round. We have $85,000 committed already. Additionally, we're looking to connect with people, whether that's VC investors for a larger seed round, healthcare associations, or public relations opportunities. And what we're trying to do is build a collection of thought leaders and decision makers that may use or recommend Rose. Secondarily, we're in need of a strong sales leader, and we're always looking to hire more sales or pharma representatives, especially those with existing relationships. This is our leadership team. Kavi Misri is our founder and CEO. Dr. Atif Adam is our chief scientific officer. Rebecca Moncomo is our chief commercial officer. And we've been extremely lucky to have Joanna Fadel and Josh Christensen as part of our Hexsite team. We have a growing group of advisors, and we call on them often. They have been incredibly supportive of what we're doing at Rose, and we couldn't be where we are today without them. So at Rose, there's a commonality amongst all of us. We have a passion for improving the fractured mental health care system. Although we all have our different reasons, we're united around a common theme, and that is to be part of the solution. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Matt. It's really been interesting to see your journey, and I feel that during COVID-19, the Rose team probably has to change the numbers on their slides every 2 days or every 20 minutes. I think there have been some interesting questions that have come through the chat. So before I hand it over to the judges, I did want to just call out, if someone from the Rose team is able to jump on the chat, Matt, George Davis, who's a former CEO at TEDCO, posed a great question about, this measures or complements Silver Spring-based Mindula Health. And I know we were talking about that over the weekend, right, Matt? So great question, George, who is with an executive VP strategic advisory services at Evergreen. Now, many of us are, very thankful for all the work that George Davis, Neil Davis, and, Stephen have done with TEDCO. So many changes that have been underway there. Just last week, we had our TEDCO Network Advisors meeting. And during that, Ann Balduzzi introduced us to the newest CEO, and Dr. Singh has some great plans and they're really doing a lot to build some resiliency in during these interesting times that we find ourselves in. So Matt, great work. You, Kavi, and the team have come a long way and are doing some, very interesting things. I'm sure Chris and company are chomping at the bit to ask some questions about, your SaaS platform, the B2B2C strategy, and to dig into some of the numbers. So Chris, I will let you take it here.
Terrific. Dr. Peters, that was really impressive. I mean, it looks like Rose has made tremendous strides, and the marketplace is really, I think, coming to you in terms of telehealth is really a necessity during COVID-19. So I don't have a whole lot of advice for you. I think you're doing all the right things, and it looks like that Rose is really taking off and set to become a really large company. I guess the only thing that I could say from a advice standpoint or a comment standpoint is I would definitely be focusing on mental health clinicians rather than the primary care physicians. I think it's much easier to get to them. They're going to understand it. You're going to need to get that base first before the primary care would come in large numbers. So other than focusing on mental health clinicians, I think you're doing all the right things. Great.
And thank you very much, Dr. Peters. Excellent presentation. You've obviously done this many, many times, so thank you. A couple suggestions. One, I would talk a little bit more about the IP, because it is such a competitive market space. That's what investors really need to understand. And I'm sure you have it nailed down. It's just something that we'd need you to talk a little bit more about. And then two, why are you not raising more money? Because my guess would be it's like a grab to get as many different customers of yours as possible. And so if you had money, would you be able to do that faster? Could you hire 5 salespeople instead of just 1? And if not, that's fine, but I would explain that. So as an investor myself, wish you were a Maryland person because I'd love to invest in you, right? So how do, and investors want to know, how can you get there quicker? So I'd think through that. Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful. Susan?
Matt, that was fantastic. I'm not at all surprised. That was a really great presentation. Questions that I had were specific to what the end user's experience was. So, for someone like you who's delivering care in both the standard of care setting as well as through Ask Rose, what's the difference for you as a clinician, and then what's the end user's experience? How does it differ? I can imagine that there's some definite benefits to a telemedicine setting specifically for mental health. So, I'd love to hear that in the next time I hear this pitch, which I look forward to. I think that adding that picture of how the experience of mental health care differs in this setting, and any differences you might be finding about how the setting changes outcomes. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Matt, if you don't mind just pulling back up that press slide, I wanted to just make sure that we highlight that again, because I think a few of the comments that are coming through are, Neil Davis, formerly of TEDCO, said, Matt, I think I'd be raising more now. Why only $150,000? So I think that's reinforcing what some of the judges said. Your work at, being part of the startup health portfolio is great. And some of the other comments that came through, how does Rose intend to tackle issues in remote and low income communities regarding access to reliable internet connections and internet ready devices? And then Matt, there are some folks that have asked for yours and Kavi's contact information in the chat. So if someone from the Rose team could include that in there, it would be great. And then one thing that I'm going to, while the judges are tabulating things, a question did come up. How did you come up with the name Rose? So for that one, Matt, you could stop sharing your screen, and I think that's something that we're gonna let you guys actually answer, because I had a few people reach out to me with that question.
Sure, yeah. So ROSE stands for Recognition of Speech and Emotion, and it's really a homage to our back-end natural language processing algorithm, which we have a lot of plans for. But the name actually does mean something.
Yeah, Okay, no, thank you. I actually hadn't tracked that one, so I'm glad, you know, when 5 people ask me a question via private message, I know it's one of those where I'm gonna let the panelists, let the pitcher answer the question. So at this time, judges, please go ahead and you can work on your scores and feedback for Rose, Smarter Mental Health. And Jasmine, I think it's time for our audience response question, right? Our audience choice. Are we
Yes, it is.
ready to go with that? Excellent. So the People's Choice Poll. Oh, fancy, fancy name. People's Choice Poll. Vote for your favorite pitch. Acute cards, NICU parent support. Consent ready, surgical procedure consent. AIRS, AI platform for sleep apnea. Perfect pass, physician handoff. Rose, AI-driven mental health monitoring platform. Thank you all so much for joining us here today. You know, one other thing that I want to mention is there were some great comments during the most recent presentation. Eileen O'Rourke from Able Foundation, CFO there, said great job. And again, we are going to track some of these comments. I know it's tough to go through all of them. I myself look forward to reading some of these excellent suggestions and getting to hear about others who are in the audience today. So Jasmine, how's our People's Choice poll doing?
We're about 61%. I can go ahead and share some of our upcoming events for you to talk through while we wait for the rest to vote. Okay, that would be wonderful. And thank you, Liz Berger from Johns Hopkins Tech Ventures. Thanks for your nice note saying that I agree. It was really an amazing set of pitches. We're proud of all of the teams, all in very different stages of growth, and each have come a long way during the course of the 16-week Hexsite Pre-Accelerator program. So, Digital Health Huddles. If you enjoyed today, we have another event coming up for you, May 14th. It will be a fireside chat with Emoca. As you can imagine, just like Rose's trajectory during COVID-19, things have absolutely picked up for Emoca Health, a remote patient monitoring digital health company in the area. And you know, we look forward to that fireside chat and hope all of you can join. Are we going to be putting the link for that in the chat, Jasmine, or what would be the best way for folks to ensure that, oh, you're way ahead of me, Ramona. Thank you so much. Ramona's posted in the chat the webinar information for the CHDX Digital Health Huddle with Emoca Health. You can also join us on May 21st. We have a sip and stretch with Burn Along. May 28th, Digital Health Trivia. And then in winter of 2020, we are going to be launching a digital health Coursera specialization, and we're looking forward to working on that. It's on digital health entrepreneurship. Mary, thanks for including the upcoming events link from the anchorventures.org page. So really appreciate you doing that, Mary. So Jasmine, are we ready to close the poll and talk about the People's Choice? Sure thing. Let me stop sharing real quick.
Okay, congratulations. Rose, Smarter Mental Health with 52% of the tally. Great job, team, and really wonderful job to all of the teams today. Perfect pass, AIRS, consent ready, acute cards. I think all of us needed a nice, you know, virtual break, and it's really exciting to hear about these clinician-led partnerships with the engineers, the design team. I recall, you know, many moons ago when Paul Nagy was starting up the Hexsite program with Jasmine at the Technology Innovation Center, he really emphasized how one of his goals was there has to be that clinician from Hopkins who can really be ensuring that whatever the IP is, whatever the solution is, will fit into the workflows or the redesigned workflows in order for these products to be successful. So that's why you heard from the clinicians today, although it's their larger teams that have been working with them hand in hand. So at this point, Jasmine, are we, should I go ahead and share the results? I've received a text from Emily.
Yes, you can go ahead and share the judges' results.
Okay, wonderful. And, you know, after I do that, I will give it, I'll give the mic back to Susan Chris and Claire for some closing remarks. So the judges' winner is also Rose. So congratulations, Team Rose. In second place, we have Perfect Pass. Great work, everybody. Really enjoyed hosting this event along with you, Jasmine. I'm going to hand it to you, Susan, for some closing remarks.
Yeah, just I wanted to say congratulations to everyone. It seems that a lot of work has happened since we originally looked at these groups just a few months ago, which feels like a very long time ago, but I can imagine the amount of work that went into perfecting these pitches. They were excellent. I really want to congratulate everyone on a fantastic job.
Thanks, Susan. Chris?
I do a lot of these types of judging panels, and I get to see a lot of companies throughout the year, 300, 400. I would say that these were the best prepared, best presentations I've seen in many, many years. So my hats are off to all the presenters and all the companies.
Yep, I would underscore that. I look at hundreds of presentations a year as well, and all of you have been very well trained in terms of what it is that investors want to see, and you've all done a really lovely job, and it's very clear you're all very passionate about your work. So thank you for sharing that with all of us today. It's really lovely to see some bright lights of hope during this pandemic, and so thank you very much. Good luck to you all.
Wonderful. Susan, Chris, Claire, we know you all have so much going on right now, so for you to take some time away on your Friday afternoons to provide some helpful feedback to the teams is really wonderful. And I'm seeing in the chat Maddie Stokes, Director of Innovation Initiatives and Corporate Relations at Johns Hopkins University. Thank you for your kind note to the teams. George Davis, others who were able to join us, Mary Morris, Anchor Ventures, Nick from Pro Tennis. You know, all of you really made this a special afternoon for the teams. Matt, Kavi, for those of you at Rose, we wish you the best of luck, and for the other 4 teams as well. Can't wait to see what the next few months have in store for you. Keep up the great work, everyone. I'm going to hand it back to Jasmine or Mark to close up the show.
So actually, we don't have a formal award for our winning team, but we do have a little celebration video we would like to play. And that's really celebration for everybody who participated in today's session. We want to thank you all for coming. We really hope that you join us next Thursday for another, I think, really well-planned event, the Amoca Fireside Chat. This is the first in the series of events for Chesapeake DHX, which we hope to hold a lot more virtual events and then eventually get back to some in-person events in the future. So we want to thanks again to all the judges, the presenters. Ash, thanks for being our lovely MC. You've been so helpful and you've led us through a great day. And I just want to say, I'm going to put up a slide at the end of this. Feel free to stay on and chat for a little bit. I won't end the session. So you guys can chat and you can reach out directly to people. You can also, the slide will include emails to all the presenters from today, so you can reach out to them directly as well. We're trying to mimic that kind of after event effect. So I'm going to go ahead and share that now, and I will allow everyone to stay and chat or see themselves out. Thank you for coming.
Great job, Jasmine. Thanks, everybody.
you